America underwent significant transformations during the 1800s. Following its declaration of independence, the nation was still in the process of defining its identity. Between 1800 and 1860, the number of states in America doubled, and millions of immigrants arrived, seeking to establish new lives. This period saw the emergence of two distinct cultural and economic regions, the North and the South, each characterized by markedly different lifestyles. You're welcome to History Empire Center. Please like and subscribe to our channel. In the northern regions, industrialization was already underway. The climate favored smaller farms, leading to a decline in the percentage of agricultural workers from 70% to 40% by the 1860s. Consequently, urban populations grew as many individuals transitioned from rural farming communities to cities. The North's population was significantly larger than that of the South, and it began to produce goods and develop trade networks facilitated by factories, railroads, and ports. Between 1840 and 1860, 4 million immigrants settled in the North, many of whom became vital contributors to the industrial workforce. Since the late 1700s, northern states had initiated the abolition of slavery, although some individuals remained enslaved even in these free states. This development caused concern among those in the slaveholding South. In contrast, the southern United States was primarily agrarian, encompassing both large plantations and smaller farms. The region's warmer climate was conducive to cultivating crops such as tobacco and cotton. Plantation owners depended on the exploitation of enslaved black individuals to sustain their affluent lifestyles and maintain their expected profit margins. The plantations proved to be so lucrative that industrialization was deemed unnecessary, largely due to the labor provided by enslaved individuals in the fields. The slaveholding states sought to suppress the abolitionist movement, leading them to establish a balance between free and slave states. From 1812 to 1850, new states were admitted in pairs, with one designated as free and the other as a slave state. However, by 1858, the number of free states had surpassed that of slave states, with a count of 17 to 15. By the onset of the Civil War in 1861, the United States was deeply divided in various aspects. The election of Abraham Lincoln prompted the Southern states to secede from the Union and create the Confederate States of America. Life in America during the Civil War was influenced by numerous factors, with skin color playing a significant role in determining one's lifestyle. Even in free states, black individuals faced limitations on their freedoms compared to their white counterparts. A common belief at the time was that once enslaved individuals were liberated, they would either be sent back to Africa or relocated to other colonies. Abraham Lincoln even allocated $600,000 to facilitate the relocation of free black individuals to Haiti or Liberia. This plan proved impractical, and many black people established their own communities as they were socially excluded from numerous established areas, despite having gained their freedom. It is noteworthy that many black men enlisted in the Union Army, totaling 7,122 officers and 178,975 soldiers. Although this was not the case at the war's outset. In retrospect, it is often believed that Unionists were primarily anti-slavery, but their main concern was preserving the Union. To avoid alienating certain states, Abraham Lincoln initially prohibited black men from serving in the Union Army. However, 2 years into the conflict, the North's urgent need for soldiers led to the decision to accept black recruits. Nevertheless, black and white soldiers were kept apart, with black regiments commanded by white officers. In the southern states, having dark skin did not automatically equate to a life of servitude. In fact, prior to the Civil War, the population of free black individuals in the North was marginally lower than in the South, although there was a distinction between the Upper and Lower South. In the Upper South, free black individuals were generally darker skinned and more rural compared to their counterparts in the Lower South. This demographic of free black people had increased in various ways, one of which was manumission, where slave owners chose to free their slaves. Following the Revolutionary War, numerous slave owners in the Upper South adopted manumission, allowing freed slaves to remain in the region and establish their own families. Conversely, the Lower South continued to depend on enslaved labor for cotton cultivation, and free black individuals there often had lighter skin, reflecting the slave owners' tendency to liberate their mixed-race offspring. The Louisiana Purchase also introduced a significant number of free black individuals into the jurisdiction of Southern states. However, the presence of free blacks in the South does not imply that their lives were uncomplicated. They faced more stringent, discriminatory laws compared to those in the North. It is essential to consider geographical context when discussing life during the Civil War, as there was a pronounced contrast between conditions in the North and South at that time. Primarily, both armies engaged in combat in the South. While the South fought to preserve their right to enslave individuals, the North's main objective was to maintain the Union. The Union forces needed to invade and subdue the South to secure victory, whereas the South sought to detach itself from the North and govern according to its own laws. This invasion resulted in significant hardships for many Southerners. The South lagged behind the North in industrial development and depended heavily on imports for various manufactured products. The Union forces obstructed trade routes to the South, which had a significant effect on both military personnel and civilians. During this period, ordinary life in the South was marked by uncertainty. With a scarcity of goods and armies traversing the region, many Southerners faced extreme difficulties. While affluent plantation owners fought to preserve their free labor force, families residing on small farms were anxious about the potential loss of their livelihoods due to the ongoing conflict. In November and December of 1864, the Unionists executed the notorious Burning Raid in Virginia, resulting in devastating losses for many impoverished farmers. Union troops set fire to grain supplies and slaughtered thousands of livestock, leaving the local population destitute. Charles Humphreys of the Reserve Brigade recounted hearing the anguished cries of women and children as men desperately implored the soldiers to spare at least one cow. In contrast, those living in the North were likely to be situated at a considerable distance from the hostilities, regardless of their actual proximity to the fighting. While the South was predominantly inhabited by agricultural laborers, individuals in the North were more likely to reside in urban areas and engage in professional or factory work. In the 1800s, engineers were 6 times more likely to originate from the North than the South. Although nearly half of the population lived a rural lifestyle, railroads and educational opportunities fostered connections among people across various regions. Children in the North attended school for longer periods compared to their counterparts in the South, and a higher proportion of white Northerners were literate. Reading emerged as a favored leisure activity, particularly among women. The extensive railway network enabled individuals in rural areas to access books and other products with the same ease as those living in cities. Gender also played a significant role during this era, as women would not gain the right to vote for another 6 decades. The Civil War brought about substantial changes in women's daily lives. With many men away fighting, women stepped into roles traditionally held by men, working in factories and managing the farms and businesses of their enlisted spouses. Some women accompanied the armies as nurses, providing care for injured soldiers and assisting in their recovery. Additionally, women found opportunities as spies, with some of the most effective operatives for both the Union and Confederate sides being female. There were instances of women residing or working for one faction while covertly supporting the opposing side. A number of women were resolute in their desire to fight alongside men to contribute to the war effort, enlisting by disguising themselves as men, cutting their hair short, and donning oversized clothing. The impact of the Civil War on women's roles was so profound that Clara Barton, a hospital nurse, remarked that the conflict advanced women's status by 50 years. Children were also significantly affected by the Civil War, which transformed their lives. Many had to mature rapidly, assisting their mothers with household and other responsibilities. Although the minimum age for military enlistment was 18, boys as young as 15 often misrepresented their ages to join the Army, thereby witnessing the brutal realities of war firsthand. Young boys were intentionally enlisted as drummer boys and messengers, with some starting their service as early as age 10. Despite their financial struggles, these farmers were largely self-sufficient and did not depend on their crop income. During this era, there was a noticeable shift away from traditional lifestyles as many young individuals from rural areas were drawn to the allure of urban life. They left their self-sustaining communities in search of better opportunities, contributing to the increasing urban population. Life in the cities was far from perfect, with many urban areas grappling with issues related to sanitation and the spread of diseases in densely populated communities. Nevertheless, cities played a crucial role during the Civil War, serving as essential hubs for recruitment, training camps, military supplies, and media support for the Unionists. Historians regard the Civil War as the first industrial conflict and a precursor to the warfare tactics observed in World War I. Armies became dependent on extensive support systems, leading to the emergence of media propaganda aimed at rallying homefront support. Despite various advancements, soldiers faced significant hardships. Their days were lengthy, beginning at dawn, with drills designed to foster unity among troops, many of whom lacked formal military training. Recruits endured severe weather conditions, insufficient clothing, and extreme hunger. To augment their meager rations, soldiers hunted and foraged for fruits, berries, and nuts in the nearby environment. By the war's conclusion, many Confederate soldiers were severely malnourished. In addition to combat casualties, soldiers faced dangers from rudimentary medical practices of the era. The concept of infection was not well understood, and medical personnel often neglected basic hygiene, such as hand washing, when treating patients. Even minor injuries could lead to fatal outcomes, with approximately two-thirds of military fatalities during the Civil War attributed to disease rather than combat wounds. Life during this period was diverse, reflecting the varied experiences across the United States today. This conflict marked a pivotal moment in the moral evolution of the nation, even if such an outcome was not initially anticipated when the war began. Following the war, America progressed further along its path toward achieving liberty and justice for all. If you found the video informative, please consider liking and subscribing for more content like this.